Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel Stitches Past 5. My name is Vera and today I am doing my second podcast episode of 2025. I kind of figured that a rhythm of every 3 weeks works for me just because 2 weeks not that much happens and 4 weeks is kind of like too much happens in my knits that I want to share. So I've kind of landed on this 3-week rhythm for now at least. So today I actually have quite a few finished objects which I'm super excited to share. A lot of them are things that I've had on my needle since literally 2024 that I've now finally been able to finish. I've gotten around to finishing them. I've also casted on a few new projects and I'm also excited to share what's coming up for me in my knitting in the next few weeks. We're kind of like in the midst of winter, in the depth of winter. It is the middle of February here. It is super cold out, so the spring or summer at all is not in sight whatsoever. We're still skiing, we're spending a lot of time outside in the snow enjoying the cold. So yeah, for me it's still definitely like deep winter knitting for sure. I'm wearing like all my thickest sweaters at the moment, but that's also like, for me, I love that time of year when it's just really cold out and you can cozy up inside and knit. It just also means that there's a little bit more time to knit because not that much goes on outside, although we live in Austria, so there's a lot like of skiing, a lot of running, hiking, cross-country skiing, all those things which we're really enjoying. And like my favorite thing is to come back from a ski day or from a running day and to just kind of cuddle up on the couch, cozy up on the couch, pick up my knitting and just like mindlessly knit to kind of recover from the day. And actually that's what we'll be doing later today. We're going on a pretty long run and then I'm already excited for the afternoon where I'll just spend a lot of time knitting and getting on with my works in progress. Okay, but without further ado, let's get into my first finished object. My first finished object is one that I actually thought I had finished back in August 2024, but I was not really happy with the shape of it. So my finished object number 1 of the day is the Cloud Sweater by PetiteKnit. I had originally made this just from the regular pattern of her first book, and it is a like very bulky oversized sweater that I'm actually like, I've already made it like less oversized because the pattern suggested way too much positive ease, so I like sized down one size, so this is size S for me in my measurements. And I made this using 5mm needles holding 2 strands of this yarn, so the Friends Kid Silk by Hobbii, held together. I really like the combination of these 2 yarns because it gives you like this really pretty like marbling effect almost, and also just kind of brightens up the color of the whole sweater. I've gotten a lot of compliments on this, like I've worn it to work a couple of times now, and I've gotten a lot of compliments on it, which is super exciting. But the reason I'm sharing it today is because I had finished it, but I never really wore it because the neckline was like out here, it didn't have the rib neck, and the sleeves were way too short. So I went ahead and ordered more yarn. This is why I have like the balls here now. I added about like maybe, I don't know, 5 to 10 centimeters on the sleeves and still like made the balloon sleeve at the end because I really like the kind of like the vibe of that when it kind of balloons out and then the sleeve is tight. And then what I did is I picked up stitches around the neckline, also on the like kind of I-cord shaping that is like from the original like neckline, so I hope you can see it. So here was like the I-cord from the original neckline, and then I kind of just picked up stitches on the side to make this ribbing here. And honestly, it was a great decision for the sweater. I love it now. I wear it like, and it just looks way better in my opinion. I like the pattern, but I didn't like that it didn't really add those finishing touches. So I just had to figure that out. I did a twisted rib stitch at the top just for a bit of like better stitch definition, given that the yarn was already really fluffy. But yeah, just a quick like check in with this one. In total, this whole sweater is around about, what was it, 200 grams, so that's like 8 yarn balls, just over 8 of these, because these are 25 grams and I held the yarn double. Yeah, what else is there to say? I think the total cost of this sweater came down to just under 50 euros because it is like a silk mohair. I didn't go with like the most expensive silk mohair because I've also just never worked a pure silk mohair sweater, other than like holding it double or something, so I was like a bit unsure, so I didn't want to like break the bank with it just yet. But I'm really happy with it. It wears really nicely. In terms of the Hobbii silk mohair, I heard like that some people find this quite itchy. Like, I mean, it is like a pure mohair mixed with silk. What is this? It's 72% mohair, 25% silk, and 3% wool. I don't find it itchy at all. Like, maybe twice in the days that I've worn it, being like, oh, there's like a little scratch here, but like, then you kind of like adjust it and it's fine. So I don't find it itchy. I think if you're super sensitive, you might find this itchy, the yarn, but for me, that's not an issue at the moment. Okay, so then I also finished another project that I talked about in like I don't know how many podcast episodes ago. I started talking about this, but I finally finished it, and it is the diamond twill vest. So it is a vest made out of like a, I guess it's like a worsted weight yarn, and by purl and stitch like combinations you add these beautiful diamonds that kind of make up the whole like structure of the vest. It's knit bottom up. You start with the ribbing and then you kind of like add the ribbing after the whole vest is finished. So you add the top ribbing and the sleeve ribbing. And yeah, the pattern. So the pattern is from this book, 52 Weeks of Easy Knits. In this book, it's pattern number 10. So it is called Diamond Twill by Nina Pommerkenke. And yeah, this is like what the pattern like model looks like wearing it. I did like the color, so I kind of went with a similar one that was more like my shade, like in my palette. And I made this vest using this yarn. So it was the Drops Nepal mix. It's called mix because it is a mix of 65% wool and 35% alpaca. And it is kind of like a pretty, like it's a pretty thick yarn. I made this vest using 5mm needles, and that worked really well. Like it's quite like sturdy, it's quite thick, and that means it also worked up pretty quickly. I'm really excited that this is finally finished because I did have some issues with it. I don't know if it is a pattern error or issue or if it was my problem. I checked so basically most Lane books have like an errata list, which is like where the errors of the book are listed, and this is not on it, so I'm not sure. So according to my measurements, I should have made size 3 because my gauge was 17 stitches instead of the 16 suggested. And my bust circumference is around like 85 to 87 centimeters. According to the recommended positive ease, which is 10 to 18 centimeters, I should have made size 3. I started size 3, and that's the one that I shared with you like back in, I think it was fall 2024. It was just way too large. Like it could have fit almost like 2 of me. So I'm not sure if that changed because the gauge is in stockinette stitch. And then because here you alternate purls and knits, maybe it extends it. I'm not sure. But anyway, so then I unraveled, like I literally had half the vest like up until the armholes made, unraveled the whole thing to size down 2 sizes because like then I saw how wide it was, and then I was like, this is way too wide, so I decided to make size 1. And because I was going for like the crop fit that is suggested in the pattern, like that's exactly what I wanted, but now I think it fits really well. I think, yeah, it was a good decision that I made. It meant that I had a lot of leftover yarn, and it also meant that it worked up like quite quickly. I finished this in like a week. I've worn it, it's super nice and warm because of like the wool mix. And yeah, so that's my diamond twill vest. So with the leftover yarn, and I mean I still have like 1.5 skeins of it, so I really like just with sizing down I needed a lot less of it, or maybe I also just bought a little bit too much, but it worked out because with the leftover yarn I was able to make this one. So it is the Twisted Hat by Veronika Lindberg, and this is of her second book, Knits to Wear, which I have, but I haven't like actually, like, this was the first pattern of the book I made. So it is essentially this hat with this brim and then the cabling at the top. But let me show you what my version looks like. Okay, so here's my version of this hat. I think it looks so good. I'm really, really happy with this one. I like it when my hats kind of like fold up like this. And this one is like very, like, it's like the perfect shape up here. I don't even know how I did that because it just pulled together at the top. But here it is. I think it looks really nice even in the sun here. So this hat was knit in the same yarn, so the Drops Nepal, and the suggested gauge here is 20 stitches by 20 rounds, but like that's in the cable pattern of the top here. And I tried a different type of yarn first, but it was way too small actually, or too thin, so then I knew that like this one would probably get me there, and with the gauge of the ribbing of my vest I was able to like figure out that that was the right yarn, because the gauge for the ribbing is 17 stitches in 1x1 rib after blocking. So it was kind of nice that I had like my vest made, because like that's exactly what the bottom here is. It's 1x1 ribbing. Yeah, so for this beanie I used a 4.5 millimeter needle for the bottom here for the 1x1 ribbing, and then I switched to a 5mm needle for the cabling at the top here. It turned out really, really nice. The cabling, I did use a cabling needle for it, and I guess you need one for this. You could probably get away with like just an extra knitting needle if you don't have a cabling needle, but I did have one and it was super like easy to then do the cabling up here. The color scheme, by the way, or the color of this yarn is 0618. And yeah, I used 107 grams, which is 160 meters for this hat, which seems like a lot, 100 grams like for a hat that's seemingly like this, but let me show you. It's because this rim is so long. Literally, like, it looks so weird like this. All this is just 1x1 ribbing, and then it feels like the cabling section is super short. So like when I was blocking this first, I was like, this looks like the weirdest thing, because obviously the rib was also scrunched together a lot more, but it works out because you kind of fold it double, like you fold it up once and then you fold it up twice and then you have your hat. Yeah, I cast this project on and then like I finished it literally 3 or 4 days later. It was a super quick project. With the cabling, it kind of like, this was very engaging, and the 1x1 rib I just kind of do it automatically, like just watching something on TV. The only thing with this pattern I did have that I would do differently next time is that it suggests like to do this part, so the ribbing, in 3 sections. And let me show you the inside, it'll become more obvious. So it suggests it to do in 3 sections, and it tells you like the measurements of each, and then it tells you to do like a round of just knits in between. So this is the purl round, like now we're on the left side. And I really like, I know that I read the pattern correctly because I read it like over and over again once I finished it, because obviously like if you knit on the right side you purl, like I just showed you on the wrong side, but because you like fold the brim up, it then means that you see the purls like on the outside because it's like folded like this, right? So yeah, if I were to make this again, I wouldn't do that, because then you see the pearls and like I don't know if you see if you're wearing it, but I don't know. I do have to like make sure it's folded exactly at this line. And I guess that's the point of it, that you do fold it like exactly at like the same point. I don't know, I'm not too fussed about that. Like I think it would actually be more practical if I could fold it anywhere. But I guess it is what it is now, and I'm not gonna unravel it, like it doesn't bother me enough. But just something to keep in mind if you're making this pattern, that yeah, you'll have like a purl line if you kind of knit the round the way the pattern suggests. But anyways, that is my twisted hat. Really loved making this. Really good pattern, super descriptive. It does come just in one size, so that's the size I made. The brim circumference is 47 centimeters, but it's like super stretchy, so I think you kind of, any head size will fit this. But yeah. So the last finished object that I want to share today are these socks, my Boyland socks. If you've been watching the podcasts for a while, you'll notice that I shared these forever ago. I think I started these like probably in June 2024, but it's always just kind of been my project that's sitting on the side, that if I'm going on a car ride or I don't know, somewhere where I want to take something small, they've come with me. So it's been kind of like a bit of a longer project, but now I'm really happy with how they turned out. They're so pretty. I love the color combination. I love the like pattern, like it just looks so nice. I knitted these in regular sock yarn, so 4-ply sock yarn by Regia or by Schachenmeier, Lana Grossa. They're all kind of like, they're very combinable. It is like a dark green and like a, what is this, like a burgundy purple with this beige off-white like natural color. These are the Boyland Socks of the book, I think it's pattern number 13 in the book 52 Weeks of Socks by the 52 Week series. I have that book as like an ebook, and so I was able to just kind of take it. It was always on my phone. I was able to cross off the color work lines like wherever I was, so it just was really like my traveling project. So when I was traveling over Christmas, I finally had the chance to finish them, and I really finished them when I got back because I had to like do all the sewing in of the ends and stuff, so they made this episode of my finished items. I've worn them, they're super comfy, I mean, as knitted socks usually are. I was a bit worried about like the color work being too constricting like at the shaft, but no problem at all. Like it just kind of like takes on, like it stretches quite a bit. But yeah, those are my Boyland socks. I'm not sure if there is much more to say about them, but I think they're super pretty. I think they're really nice, and I just love wearing homemade socks. They're so comfy. So let's move on to my works in progress. The first one I already shared last episode, and it is my Elisabeth blouse in the making using this yarn. It is the Touch Yarn Possum Silk Merino. I have knit like a few more rows on this, but to be honest, it's not really been my priority at the moment, because I consider this more of like a spring knit, I guess. And there's also just so many stitches on these needles at the moment that I'm not too motivated, in all honesty, because it's just a lot of purling on the row back, a lot of knitting. I think we're kind of like at the widest part of the arms at the moment. This is yarn that my parents gifted to me from New Zealand. It is yarn that is made out of merino wool, 60% possum fur, 30%, and 10% silk. And it is a relatively like thin, I would say it's like more on the, I don't know if this is still DK. I guess the gauge is like 22 stitches. So I guess it is a DK weight yarn, but like it's on the lighter side. So I'm knitting this Elisabeth blouse by PetiteKnit up on 4.5mm needles. My gauge, oh sorry, 4mm needles. My gauge is a little bit larger than the pattern, so I have sized down a size. And yeah, I'm adding some, making them in this like gray color. I think this is color ink, and then I'm adding stripes or like thick stripes of this color, which is burnt orange. But yeah, this is kind of just like on the side for now. I did knit it a little bit, so I just quickly wanted to share it. Okay, then a recent cast on, because I've casted off so many projects, like I don't have too many projects that I'm like in the middle of at the moment. But one that I literally just cast on, so this is where we're at, and that I'm really excited to make, is also from this book, Knits to Wear, and this is the sweater that I'm making out of. It is called The Simple Thing, and yeah, it is essentially this top-down sweater, but it's knit in like panels as far as I'm understanding from the pattern at the moment. I am making it in the Hobbii upcycled alpaca blend, which is 100% recycled yarn, and it is, what is it, 34% acrylic, 33% alpaca, 33% wool, and one of these skeins is 100 grams. So I think I ordered like 8 of these because it is an oversized sweater. The color is color number 2, called Wheat. So yeah, I just started the sweater. It is like a really oversized fit, which I'm always a bit wary about, so I'm Like when I'm in between sizes on the oversized garments, I tend to size down, because although I like oversized, I think with some designers, and I think Kiko or Veronika Lindberg is definitely in that category of designers, is just a bit too oversized, at least for my liking, but that's fine because I can just size down a size. So I'm making size S for myself, which I mean the recommended positive ease here is 30 to 40 centimeters, bigger than your bust circumference, and this for me will be like 30 centimeters positive ease, so I'm on the low side of the recommended positive ease, because I think 40 centimeters is just a little bit too much, at least for my personal preference. Yeah, I just casted it on, so there's not too much to report at the moment. I am making it on 4.5mm needles, just like what the yarn as well as the pattern suggests. I made my gauge swatch, and it was like the gauge of the pattern is 19 stitches, and my gauge swatch was just like over 19 stitches, not quite 20, but like not 19, so like somewhere between. But then also, because there is 30% of positive ease in this pattern, if I end up with 20 or 25%, totally fine, like I'm okay with that. So we'll see how it goes. So that's the Simple Thing sweater from Knits to Wear in upcycled alpaca blend. By the way, I bought this yarn off of Hobbii, and it was on sale. So I'm really excited about it because it would have been really expensive per skein, but this way I think I got it like at 50% off. I think I ended up paying 4 or 5 euros for a 100-gram skein, where it would have been like between 8 and 11, I think. But just a side note. Okay, then the next work in progress I want to share is a bit of a different one. So my partner has asked for a hat, and he's specifically asked for a like Norwegian style cross-country skiing hat. So this is what it looks like at the moment. I found a free pattern off of an inserted picture, I'm not sure what it's called at the moment, and it just has like the color work, and so we're really excited to get into that, and that hopefully he can fit it, because I am making it out of sock yarn, so I had to do a little bit of like gauge maths by adding rows, adding like stitches, because my gauge is like 28 to 30 stitches and the suggested pattern is 26 stitches, and we also need to adjust the size to make it a little bit larger for him. So yeah, I think, or I hope that I have enough stitches. I cast it on 148 instead of the 124 suggested in the pattern. We're not quite at a point yet where we can like try it on and figure it out. But I'm really excited. Something like different for me as well, like a colorwork hat, like a very short fitted one kind of, if that makes sense. But yeah, I'll keep the updates coming. I'm making these on 2.5mm sock needles, and yeah, I'm using like a double pointed needle set because I don't have the magic loop, and I kind of wish I did for this, but I don't have the round needles in this like small size. But so far so good. I think it would be preferable to have like a 40 centimeter cable needle for this, but we'll make it work with this. I'm using the same yarn as I did the Boyland Socks in, so this is the Regia Schachenmeier in a very neutral beige tone. I can't tell you like the color because I don't have the piece of paper anymore, because this yarn I've had for a really long time. Okay, then another update I think I'll do in like every podcast in the next year, I guess. But just a quick one is my temperature blanket. So I have been at it. I've been quite yeah, consistent at it, I would say. So this is where we're at. We have entered the cold era, the cold season. I mean, we were on holiday in the tropics here, and then we kind of came back. The way I'm doing it is, if I were in one city and my partner was in another, I switch colors like halfway. So that way we both get to be on it, and it's just kind of like a nice memory. And I've really been enjoying just crocheting a row or two here and there. Like, it's just been nice. It's been fun, like looking at the temperatures. I'm really pretty engaged at the moment. And yeah, I mean, this is where we're at now. It is the middle of February. I am working like I think a week behind, but I'm pretty up to date other than that. Just because apparently the average temperatures need updating and that takes a few days, so that's why it is suggested that you work a little bit behind. So this is where we are. So now let's get to my future works that I have not yet casted on, but that are like the next thing that I'm gonna cast on. You might remember that I had this sweater. I think I made this sweater by Florence Miller like way back. I don't even know how long ago. Long story short, it never really fit me, so I finally unraveled the whole thing, and now I'm left with like all these cakes of yarn. This is marbled like yarn, so it is like kind of self-striping, but not too intensely self-striping. The yarn is this one, so it's a German yarn, Sport- und Strumpfwolle by Wolle Rödel. But first I thought that I was gonna make the Monday sweater out of it. So in my winter knitting plans, I talked about the Monday sweater and so on and so forth. The thing is, I wanted to kind of like, I don't know, kind of upgrade the yarn a little bit. So I was happy with the Friends Kid Silk, which is why I got a few more balls of this yarn to hold together with this one. It's pretty dark, but here, to hold together with this one. So I'm gonna alternate the light and the dark color mohair with this, like per row. And I made my gauge swatch yesterday, literally. That's what it looks like. So I'm really happy with that because it just like looks nice and it kind of has like the mohair glow as well. The only problem now is that the Monday sweater I think has a gauge of like 20 or 21 stitches, and this is literally 15 or 16 stitches. I think 15 and a half stitches. So now I won't be able to make the Monday sweater out of this yarn combination. I purposefully made this with 6mm needles because I wanted like a nice drape. I didn't want like a really stiff sweater. But I think I already found the sweater that I'm gonna make with it instead. It has a very similar construction, at least from what I can see from the pattern. And that is this one. So it is also from the book 52 Weeks of Easy Knits. It is this sweater, so it is called the V-Mine sweater. The designer is Vera Jusila, and yeah, it is also like a raglan slash drop shoulder. Like I think it includes both, like on the shoulders here, but this pattern has a suggested gauge of 16 stitches, so way more close like to my gauge swatch. And I mean, I don't have an issue with going up or down 1 stitch in a gauge swatch, but I think if we're talking 6 stitches and 10 centimeters, that's like not something that you can fix within one pattern or by sizing up or sizing down a little bit. So I'll be making the V-Mine sweater out of this scrap yarn. This is literally the 3rd time I've unraveled this yarn because I've just never been happy with the item. I'm happy with the yarn, like the yarn is nice. It's like a, I think it's meant to be like a thick sock wool. The contents are 75% wool and 25% polyamide, so it's like your typical sock wool like mix, but it is pretty thick, so it's like, I think it's like almost worsted yarn, worsted weight yarn. Yeah, the recommended needle size is 3.5 to 4mm, but I actually don't agree with that because that would make it really, really tight. So yeah, I made my gauge swatch, but also held with 1 strand of mohair on 6mm needles, and I'm really happy with how the drape turned out. So that will be kind of like my next project. I really want to see like how long it will take me to make that sweater, because I have no idea how long like a sweater takes. I don't know if it's like 10 hours, if it's 30 hours, if it's 50 hours, I have no idea. So I might like just kind of put a little timer and just see how long it actually takes me, just for my personal interest, like not to make it a race or anything, just because I'm genuinely curious. Okay, so that's already the end of today's podcast. Yeah, I did have quite a few projects to share today, so that's always kind of exciting. I like that I have options of WIPS to pick up. I'm trying to become like more, I used to really have one thing, start it, finish it, and that was it. But I am kind of enjoying having different options of like projects to pick up and just being able to knit like what I want to knit that day and not what's like on my needles necessarily, because that's the only thing that's on my needles. So yeah, I've really kind of been enjoying that different, I don't know, logistical knitting. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I'd love for you to give it a like and maybe even subscribe and stick around. Yeah, I guess I'll see you in the next podcast in 3 weeks from now, but I do post videos every single week. All right, well, until the next one, I hope you take care. Bye bye.